Ever since Days Gone was announced, it felt like the media was out to bring this game down. It felt like a situation where the media all came together and said, "Yep, are we all in agreement? We're either going to hate this or we're going to love this." When the embargo for the reviews lifted, there were many different opinions that were coming out, with a lot of larger outlets saying how the game was mediocre. Some of the criticisms seemed valid, and other comments were just odd. Even though I had not played the game yet, I knew something didn't feel right. Some critics felt like they were trying to use Days Gone as a means to push an agenda that was completely unrelated to the game itself. Essentially, they were trying to make something out of nothing, and further showed how embarrassing these comments were. At the same time, other outlets were countering some of these reviews, saying that the larger media was getting information wrong. Some were stating how the main character doesn't have any growth or development. I couldn't fully understand these comments since I hadn't beat the game, but as I continued to play it and beat it, I really saw how wrong these comments were. Days Gone is not a perfect experience, and there are plenty of areas to critique and make suggestions for improvement, while appreciating the many things it does get right. Going into this game, I had respect for Bend Studios because of their prior work. I very much enjoyed Siphon Filter as a kid, and it's a series that deserves to come back. I had the opportunity to speak to one of the developers of Days Gone while at PAX East, and I asked them about Siphon Filter. They said that they continually try to pitch another game to Sony, but Sony continually turns them down. So Bend really does want to bring another game out, just as much as the fans want to play it. On a more personal side note, I love their work on Uncharted Golden Abyss for the PS Vita. The highest compliment that I can give that game is that it felt like a Naughty Dog experience while not actually being made by Naughty Dog. Golden Abyss provided an Uncharted experience that was on par with Uncharted 1. It fell in line with the series and provided it on a portable console. Days Gone is their first game on a home console in a long time, and an ambitious one at that. As I cover the game, you will see how Days Gone has many elements that are familiar to the medium, while providing something that is worth experiencing. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my review for Days Gone. Days Gone gameplay consists of exploring the open world, experiencing the engaging story, and the combat. The exploration gives you large sections to explore. Throughout the story, more sections will expand, providing you with newer areas. The game finds a nice middle ground between the Ubisoft open world structure and something that is more like in Red Dead Redemption. The game will indicate if you need to drive to someone for a mission, but throughout the open world there are infestations and camps to take out along the way, along with areas to raid for supplies. What I like is how these areas would not be pre-populated on the map, but rather they would pop up as you drive near them, letting you know that you could do a side activity. This is a small difference, but it gives you this feeling of stumbling across something rather than just kind of feeling like you need to check a box. Bandit Camps are fun to do as you need to take out everyone within the location, and each of these can be approached from a few different ways. You have the two obvious methods of going in guns blazing or stealth. Within these two methods are some more nuance to your approach. Do you try to equip a silencer and take out all the enemies before they see you? Or do you use your knife to save your ammo? And this is an approach that I used for my first several hours with the game as I didn't have many supplies. Other items like crossbows and traps can help with this as well. For going loud, you will have many different guns to choose from, with each of them being fun to use. The shotgun provides some fun results as it pushes enemies back and it might blow off some limbs. The assault rifles are best for staying behind cover. Along with this, and I give this game huge props, is late into the game you're going to get a lot of these classical American weapons, like the Tommy gun or some really good Western weapons, and I love their additions here. What helps to improve the shooting sequences is the use of focus. Essentially, you can slow down time and line up some really good headshots. The guns sound good and are fun to shoot.
Hey there. Fuck. Look, my friends!
The gun gameplay is good. If you shoot someone who is close to a wall, you will see the blood splatter on the wall. Enemies will react when you shoot them, giving some weight and life that makes the gunplay even more engaging. Melee combat is another alternative. You will find a variety of different melee weapons to use, along with the ability to be able to craft deadlier ones. These are satisfying and fun to use. You can usually feel the hit depending on the different weapon. Sledgehammers, bats, and blades all factor in the different weights of the weapons, and you can really hear that thud or slash that they make. Melee isn't in depth, but rather a fun option if you have a few enemies up close. Another cool thing about the weapon is that if you're attacking an enemy, your weapon will degrade, and then it will eventually break. So in some instances, your weapon may break when you hit an enemy, and then you might do this really cool kill move where they use part of the broken weapon to be able to kill your foe. As you complete missions and defeat enemies, you will gain experience points and skill points. Some skills will even help you out to be able to change up your strategies within combat. A late game skill that you do earn is being able to earn some health back for headshots. This change up in gameplay will really help you approach situations differently, especially if you're in a scenario where you don't have many healing items left and you don't want to die. The use of the freakers and encountering hordes definitely are one of the most unique aspects of the game.
Ready for this?
These sequences are visually impressive and can be a rush to complete. The horde situations are enjoyable because of the planning involved and the adaptation of the player when they are chasing you. If you go in there blind, there's a chance you might win if you're well armed and can adapt to the situation, but planning is definitely rewarded. Surveying the environment is important, as you might find some environmental traps to use, along with good ways to funnel in the horde into a specific location to be able to hit them with a bunch of explosives. I like how the horde will not just follow you in a straight line, but in many instances break off and try to cut you off from either the left or right. Like I said, there's a lot of reacting while in the thick of it, and one wrong move can cause you to die. Some of the more thrilling situations is when you might stumble upon a decent sized horde while exploring at night. I had that happen a few times and decided to hide and wait for them to pass. It felt like being in one of those situations where the survivors in the zombie movie are essentially trying to sneak in an area so they don't alert their opposition. There were a few situations where I was doing something else and a horde would appear to create this more dynamic situation. I was attacking a bandit camp, and then a horde came in to attack the camp, and then there was utter chaos with two factions fighting each other. My most interesting situation with a horde was where I was trying to get another Nero upgrade, and I didn't realize that there was a horde near it. I didn't have a lot of supplies, so I tried taking down some of them, but it got to the point where all I could really do was run. I tried running to locations around me for more supplies, but eventually I would run out again. I could return back to base and then restock on my supplies, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to try and get that upgrade now. So I had an idea. I was curious if this would work. I had the horde chasing me to a nearby bandit camp that I didn't defeat yet. I ran into the camp and hid. The horde came in and attacked all the bandits. The bandits were able to kill all the freakers, and then I took out the rest of the bandits. This was hands down one of my favorite gameplay moments within the game. I love how I was able to use a horde to my own advantage to take out the bandit camp while also having the bandits take out the horde. Fighting these hordes will exhaust many of your resources, and no matter what point you are in the game, there is this satisfaction of defeating a horde, but then you really feel very vulnerable after that encounter. This will usually lead to you trying to be more cautious until you're resupplied. This all feeds into the environment and the world being a dangerous and potentially unpredictable place. Like I said before, the exploration does remind me a bit of Red Dead, and it does this through some of the random encounters you will have. You can come across wandering hordes, animals, and infected animals that will want to take you out. One of my favorites is how you will encounter bandits that will try to surprise you and kill you for your supplies. There was one instance early on where I was tracking something, and then it ended up being a trap set by the bandits, and I had to kill them and get my equipment back. While the variety variety of the random encounters is not as extensive as something in Red Dead Redemption 2, these encounters help to make the open world feel more alive. Overall, the gameplay is solid. I like how most of the missions in open world do lend themselves to being tackled how you want. The stealth kills are satisfying along with the shooting. The slow-mo focus mode is appreciated for better weapon handling, and I like how you get rewarded for everything you do. Something else that was appreciated was the restraint with using hordes for a huge chunk of the game. The larger and more visually impressive hordes come across to the player within the second half to the last quarter of the game. Like many other elements to the game, it slowly builds to this point and really prevents the game from really showing all of its cards early on. The build-up is appreciated and well paid off. The story is another huge part of the game, and it's one that I thoroughly enjoyed.
Tree is alive and farewell after all.
No. If it's not, then I didn't kill him.
Hey! Aw, poor guys.
Hey, is that the one we're gonna smoke later?
No, but this is the one we're gonna drink. I make this killer herbal tea with it.
I'll bet.
Hey! Alright, if you come over, then I will make it for you as long as you give me a ride home.
All right, great.
You're gonna be a believer.
And we'll grab a beer for myself on the way over.
You play as Deacon, who is a drifter. The game takes place about 2 years after the initial outbreak. You are teamed up with your best friend Boozer and you're trying to survive. Throughout the story, Deacon is trying to get closure on his wife, and a lot of the narrative involves you interacting with different camps. The third camp is where you're going to spend a lot of your time. Deacon is not a typical heroic guy. He's a character that fits the world of Days Gone. I do need to praise the writers and Sam Witwer's performance as Deacon, as a complicated man, and the story does a good job of showing this. There are many situations where you can see that Deacon wants to do the right thing, but understands that if he does that, it potentially could cause him more trouble, and you can kind of see him internally struggle with this. He is a damaged man that doesn't want to hold on to hope, yet he still finds himself doing it. He's also pretty funny and relatable as you see him battle with his own demons and what kind of person he wants to be in this crazy world. He does show a kinder side from time to time, and this helps to balance out how brutal he can be. A small touch that I really enjoyed with the game is how Deacon will talk to himself a lot. And since you're alone for many of the missions, this totally fits, and it's pretty humorous as well. A good handful of side characters are likable, and I enjoyed the interactions with Deacon. The best of these are when you see flashbacks of Deacon with his wife. We get a glimpse of who Deacon was before the outbreak and how much he cares for his wife. There's some cheesy romance stuff that happens, but I loved it since it helped to show the player a happier time for these two when their life was normal. The first half of the narrative is spent on establishing the world, the camps, and different characters along with Deacon. The story progressively gets more and more focused as you enter the second half. Since the groundwork is laid out, the story can play with Deacon and his interactions with other characters. Without spoiling anything, there's some very compelling drama that takes place in the second half. It all leads to a conclusion that is very satisfying. There's a proper conclusion while leaving room for another game. Overall, I very much enjoyed the story and it elevated the game. It brought narrative purpose to the gameplay, and while the game is long, it's one that I want to experience again.
How's it going, pal? Come here. Hey, buddy. Hello. Come here, buddy. Hi. Hello. All right, come here. Come here. Okay. Oh, my God. All right.
While I thoroughly love the game, it isn't without its flaws. The big one is how the game doesn't put its best foot forward for its introduction. The game throws you right into the outbreak, which is fine, but I quickly noticed that they made these quick cuts that really felt jarring during these cutscenes. Every time a cutscene starts or ends, the game will fade to black. In some instances, especially within the opening minutes, there are transitions to and from cutscenes, and that's also done through fading to black. I understand that the game probably needs to load or do something on the back end, but it creates this very jarring experience when you first enter the game. And it's something that does break up the flow that you would expect from continuous cutscenes. The fade to black is usually used to transition from gameplay to cutscene, or cutscene to gameplay. And this makes me wonder if there was cut gameplay content from the opening scenes based on these transitions. I wanted to make note of this here because this is probably going to be jarring to many people and a bit off-putting. I find that an introduction is important to get right, since it really helps to hook the player. Thankfully, the game does sort itself out about after an hour, especially once you get into the first major gameplay section. While fading to black for the transitions to cutscene or gameplay is annoying, it is something that you get used to. And the fading to black from cutscene to cutscene doesn't really happen that often, and it's only something you're really going to see at the very beginning and towards the end. I had a few other issues that would pop up. In a good handful of situations, the audio and video would be out of sync during the cutscenes, and it would feel like I was watching Kung Pao rather than playing Days Gone. This really hurt the immersion when it happened, but thankfully if you completely close out of the game and reload it, it does fix this issue. It's very annoying, but not detrimental to the game. I had a good handful of silly bugs, like enemies getting stuck or crows trying to fly into fences. This sort of stuff doesn't really bother me, and I found it more humorous than anything. The enemy AI can be a bit wonky, and it might act really dumb at times, as they try not to beat you really with tactics, but more so numbers. The Horde AI seems to be a lot better. You will fight a good amount of bears and these brute-like creatures, and while I do appreciate their attempt at having variety to the enemies, I wish these encounters had more variety to them. Essentially, they are powerful bullet spongers that just charge at you, and once they catch you, then you go into a quick time event. These fights can get really tedious. One area I did want to bring up for a potential sequel was the increase in enemy variety. So within the game, you will fight different factions of people, and there's this one crazy cult group that I really thought would lend themselves to having some crazy enemy types. They have the usual assortment of soldiers like melee attackers, gunmen, snipers, and heavies. But there's this one guy who will light himself on fire and try to hug you and kill you. I wish there were more enemies like this, seeing as how it really fed into the faction itself. If you're gonna have a crazy faction, then go nuts with it and give us more stuff like this that really reflects that faction. Lastly, the frame rate does take a consistent hit while driving the bike. You will really see this in the last open section of the game. Again, it's annoying but not detrimental. One mission type I wished was not in the game were those instant fail missions. There are a few missions where you cannot be seen or attack anyone. Thankfully, these missions are rather short, but the excuse the game gives as to why you can't attack these people is because their armor will block your bullets. These enemies are just regular people with normal equipment, so the excuse doesn't really make any sense. And I think it would have been better if the game just said you can't kill anyone because you're going in to gather intel and you don't want anyone to know you were actually there. These missions can be a bit annoying, since getting caught and restarting at the checkpoint sort of feels like the game is scolding you. But they are short and not the main mission type you will be enjoying. I found most of these flaws annoying, and I definitely thought the good outweighed the bad. I think the performance will only get better as they release more patches, and when the game was released, they have been consistently patching this game to keep making it better. Lastly, I do want to highlight the excellent music score. This year has already had some great musical scores from games like The Division and Anthem, with Days Gone being another great addition. The music is memorable and epic. Love Days Gone. Deacon is a complicated and rather gray protagonist. Taking part in his story was very engaging. Watching him fight with his inner demons and seeing him grow was satisfying. The gameplay presents a very familiar format and it's well executed here. Many critics have attacked the game for being unoriginal, and while I understand the need for more original games, there is something to be said about a game that delivers many familiar things and does them well. The third-person combat is engaging, with a lot of guns and tools to choose from. The true highlight is when you go up against the hordes. The visual spectacle and the intensity of fighting them is very unique to this game. The characters, world, story, gameplay, and soundtrack all effectively pull you in for this lengthy journey that feels like you just experienced a season or two of quality television. I acknowledge the flaws within the experience, but they didn't kill my enjoyment. I found myself continually smiling as I played the game even more. Even with the game's long length, I didn't want it to end, and I would love for Days Gone to get a sequel. Where many stories do experience issues with their efforts to have a satisfying conclusion, Days Gone feels like they nailed that aspect of the game. The journey was enjoyable and the destination was worth it. Ben Studios has created something special here, a new potential series that I want to explore more of, and I would love the excuse to spend more time with these characters. This is one of my favorite games on the PS4, and it's most certainly one of 2019's underrated games.
name is Toby, and this is my house. Welcome to Toby's house.
Thanks. No thanks. Sorry, my talking is erratic also because I can hear my voice late. Like for real, yo, I got your boy like fucked up. Okay, here we are. Contract.
We have an intruder.
Oh. Oh my god. You can really get wild with this auto aim. See how strafing and jumping. Wow, that's so embarrassing for you. Ooh, that's embarrassing. Do I just not remember old games well, or do I feel like the geometry of games was a little more had a wider range of stuff? Like, I don't remember this many just like plain blocks. Is that the way that the first one was? I'm sure it was. I'm just like misremembering history. But I mean, these look good. These are all wire here. These look cool too. These have a nice look to them. You know what? I bet that I'm missing some fucking ultra high resolution shit. I'm kind of pissed off right now. I'm pissed. Let's just say I'm a little pissed. Come on. All this shit, I gotta be able to do something. Oh, fuck you, lads.
I am trying to be patient, but this situation is completely intolerable. It's times like this I wish I'd built an army of killer robots instead of adding the East Wing. What was I thinking?
Cute. So now, I guess I opened something there. See, I didn't even... Oh god, give me a break. Oh my god, give me a fucking break. This is so fucked. Ouch. Ouch. Oh yeah, sniper rifle. I forgot about that one. This fool's about to fucking get one direct. Fucking get one direct. Fuck that. Get fucked. Get the. You fucking dipshit. Is this a fucking joke right now?
Woody?
Why am I alive? You are a toy. You belong to Bonnie. These are your friends.
Woody, I have a question. Well, actually, not just one. I have all the questions.
Who wants to go on a road trip?
Me!
Vacation!
You need help with that?
No, I got it.
I know, this is a little strange, but we all have to make sure nothing happens to Forky.
Something happened to him.
Buzz, we gotta get Forky.
Roger that.
The panic is attacking me.
Change of plans. Jesse, Ham, Buzz, Bo, Rex, Potato Head.
Hey, watch it, buddy.
Let's go save a spork.
Do I need to be worried?
Well, my guys are veterans. They'll hang in there.
On my way, Woody!
Oh.
I know the perfect toy to help.
Duke Kaboom, Canada's greatest stuntman. Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Yes.
He's posing.
Yeah.
Duke, we need
Hold
to...
on. One more. Oh, yeah.
Hold on.
Woody'll save me. I've known that guy my whole life. 2 days.
Is that how we look on the inside? There's so much fluff.
We have to find him, Mom.
Bonnie needs Forky.
Aw, Sheriff Woody always coming to the rescue. That's gonna be quite a jump for you and Duke.
For me?
Let's kaboom.
That's where Forky is being kept.
How do we get that key?
What about the old plush rush?
There you go.
Oh, where did you two come from?
Well, we're not doing that.
Cheese on her tots, call that bitch a tater. Bitch suck my dick like a stupid retard scholar. Brain so smart, I gave her $100. My dick like a stupid retard scholar. Head so good, yeah, I paid her $100. Hit it last week, next week I'm gonna holler. Bitch head smart, yeah, send that bitch to Harvard. Bitch suck my dick while I zipped up my babe. Closed my eyes tightly while she sucked on my grape. Bitch suck my dick like that man Ralph Nader. Pour cheese on her tots, call that bitch a tater.
4 giving me problems. What a surprise.
Suck my dick like a damn name was Cary Grant. Fat ass looking bitch, yeah, she looked like an elephant. Bitch suck my dick while she shopped at Kohl's, chillin' in the shopping cart playing with her holes. Bitch suck my dick like a damn name was Cary Grant. Fat ass looking bitch, yeah, she looked like an elephant. Bitch suck my dick while she shopped at Kohl's, chillin' in the shopping cart playing with her holes. Bitch suck my dick like a damn name was Cary Grant. Fat ass looking bitch, yeah, she looked like an elephant. Bitch.
My computer is so fucking slow.
That there was so many stunning intricacies in the game's design that made you completely forget about the minute issues that were here. The beautiful world. Going into Days Gone, I had very high hopes and expectations, and after spending upwards of 40 hours basking in the game's hauntingly beautiful world, I can now say officially that Days Gone is everything I thought it would be, and in this video we'll be reviewing the game's open world, mechanics, and narrative, examining its many positive aspects, as well as its few weaknesses that have led some reviewers to give the game horrendously underrated scores. With that being said, please sit back, relax, and enjoy. At the heart of Days Gone is its harsh and unforgiving open world. Set in Oregon 2 years after a worldwide pandemic turned the majority of the population into zombie-like creatures called Freakers, the world of Days Gone is a very melancholic and dangerous one. From its somber musical score, decimated towns, and remnants of human life that almost all turn evil, there's an undeniable sense of gloom that fills the air of the game. And in this section of the video, we'll be taking a look at how the world design and gameplay of Days Gone allow it to deliver a tense experience and impactful narrative of personal loss that still resonates with me after completing the game. Many reviews have bashed Days Gone for performance issues, and to be fair, the game does suffer from the occasional frame drop as well as a lot of issues with texture loading. I mean,
Clothes vulture necked into her behind. Bitch suck my dick like her damn name was Clementine. Peeled off her clothes, vulture necked into her behind. Bitch suck my dick like her damn name was Clementine. Peeled off her clothes, vulture necked into her behind. Peeled off her clothes, vulture necked into her behind. Bitch suck my dick like her damn name was Clementine. Peeled off her clothes, vulture necked into her behind.
yeah, there's some definite issues here. Days Gone for performance issues. And to be fair, the game does suffer from the occasional frame drop as well as a lot of issues with texture loading. I mean, yeah, there's some definite issues here technically. But at the same time, you have to take into account that this game was released at the back end of the PlayStation 4's lifespan. And to expect technical perfection from such a massive experience coming from a very small studio being Bend, I might add, it's like asking IGN to write a decent review for once. It's pretty much impossible these days. And with that being said, when I did encounter the aforementioned bugs, they were nothing too serious to the point where they had any bearing whatsoever on my enjoyment of the game, and none of it was game breaking. On top of that, there was so many stunning intricacies in the game's design that made you completely forget about the minute issues that were here. Take for example the dynamic weather and time passage that not only changes the scenery of the game, but also allows you to interact with the world differently. Freakers are stronger and more abundant by night, while during the day you're more likely to be ambushed by rippers or marauders, and these people are literally insane. The game also has a massive amount of variance in terms of the type of terrain you explore, and after a while I actually noticed that Deacon's animations and movement speeds change depending on the surrounding geography. The best example I can think of is running up and down a hill. The same concept can apply to when you're on your motorcycle, as it takes more gas to get through terrain that is rockier and more hilly, and likewise you can coast down hills to save on fuel. And this is a very important aspect considering that you can actually run out of gas in the middle of nowhere, in which case you need to find a gas can to refuel your bike, or run all the way to a camp and pay them to retrieve it for you. This can be very hazardous in a world filled with so many threats, and your bike is oftentimes the only thing saving you from being mauled by a horde of freakers or torn to bits by rippers. And while these enemies definitely don't have very smart AI, they do pose a threat in large quantities. For instance, Deacon's normal running speed is just a tad slower than a freaker, and though the game allows you to sprint, you will quickly consume stamina and eventually get caught if you're not careful. This makes resource management extremely important, and you'll constantly have to keep an eye on your gas tank, stamina bar, health, and inventory. And as someone who's been playing on the standard difficulty setting and only died a few times throughout the experience, I felt the game had the perfect balance between supplies and the need for them. It's not that difficult, but it's nothing incredibly easy either. And I'm just going to throw this out there right now, if you're looking for a run and gun zombie game, this definitely isn't going to be your cup of tea, as it's mechanically set up more in the fashion of a survival game than anything else. So if you're more after a shoot 'em up type of zombie game, I would definitely recommend World War Z, which also just dropped a few days ago. Now, getting back to the topic at hand of Days Gone, we've already talked about the survival mechanics quite a bit, so let's move on to talking about some of the other gameplay components. In terms of combat, it's like a lot of third-person action games. Days Gone gives players a choice of using stealth to deal with enemies or go in guns blazing. And while this is nothing new, the game does provide plenty of strategic options for both. Stealth players can throw rocks to create distractions, craft silencers out of oil filters, and recon areas with your binoculars to get the lay of the land before entering. On the other hand, action-focused players have a large arsenal of weapons that can be purchased at a survivor camp. The more trust the camp owners have in you, the better gear you can buy and the more credits you'll have to spend, which comes naturally as you complete missions. At the same time, Deacon can also be updated through a skills tree system that breaks things into 3 core areas, those being survival, melee combat, and range combat. Combined, there's a total of 45 different skills to unlock, allowing you to upgrade to meet your own playstyle. Deacon's health, stamina, and focus can also be upgraded at one of the game's many Nero checkpoints. You just have to go find them and power them on. And while you will be doing the same thing over and over again, I never really felt as though the repetition of this game was making it boring, as its fundamental elements at the core of the game's complex mechanic system were incredibly well made. I mean, it's not perfect, and it'd be biased of me not to mention how the weapon handling is a bit clunky. Shooting from your motorcycle feels incredibly archaic and just god-awful at times, and there's a lot of inconsistencies when it comes to how the enemy AI behaves. But on the whole, Days Gone is perfectly fine when it comes to its core mechanics and overall gameplay experience. I mean, when you just look at the smallest things, like the movement on foot or on bike, it's incredibly smooth, the response time is just fine, and there's just no game-breaking glitches within. With that being said, the fact that some reviewers are criticizing the game on a technical level just shows their incompetence for the gaming medium. I mean, there have been games with a hell of a lot worse technical issues that have gotten far better scores on sites like IGN and GameSpot. And yet some of these guys have the audacity to mark the game down for things like only running at 30 FPS. But even that kind of stupidity pales in comparison to the following claim made by this reviewer at IGN.
And while I'll admit that I initially rolled my eyes at yet another gruff white male protagonist, especially one with such a gruff white male protagonist-y name as Deacon St. John, I ended up getting far more invested than I'd initially expected.
Yeah, pretty bad, huh? Apparently the game is too white. That's gotta be about the most racist way you could possibly review a video game ever. But IGN's not alone, as GameSpot has also been exposed for having their reviewer not be someone that plays video games really at all. In fact, it was just a journalist trying to spread her agenda, as you can find many articles about online. I mean, it's okay to give a game a low score, but at least explain why using logical reasoning that pertains to video games, not because you don't agree with the political stance of the game or its developers. And with that being said, I think we all owe Days Gone for being a massive eye-opener to the general public as to just how bad these game review companies can be. And it sparked a lot of discussion around the web on the subject matter, and for that I feel that we owe Days Gone some gratitude. Now, with that being said, I could sit and go on and on about how bad these companies are, but I'm not going to sit and do that for the next 20 minutes in this video, as the topic at hand really is Days Gone. But if you're interested in a video in which we explore these so-called gaming journalism outlets, please let me know in the comments section below, as I'd be more than happy to make one. With that being said, let's go ahead and transition back to more of Days Gone. I'd like to move on to discussing the atmosphere and aesthetic it brings to the table. For starters, the briefly aforementioned dynamic weather is incredible. I mean, absolutely incredible. One thing that really caught my eye was just how many conditions there truly are. I mean, sure, you've got rain, snow, fog, and sunshine, but what's amazing is the number of variants of each type of these. To put it into perspective, you can actually see a tiny noticeable difference between heavy rain and light rain, or somewhat overcast and extremely overcast. But no matter what the weather conditions are, one thing that runs consistently throughout the game is its hauntingly beautiful aura, one that gives you chills with its gruesome depiction of the apocalypse, while at the same time suggesting that humanity can live on no matter what. And the game's lush Oregonian landscape provides the perfect backdrop for creating its haunting yet serene atmosphere. This, in conjunction with the game's beautiful soundtrack, allows its story and character development to feel all the more compelling, which leads us into our next topic: the narrative. Before I begin this segment of the video, I just want to clarify that there will be spoilers. So if you have not beaten the game yet, please proceed with caution and consider clicking off and coming back once you have. With that out of the way, I'd like to start by looking at the game's plot structure, as I find it to be very clever and innovative. So, unlike most games, Days Gone breaks its story into several subplots that all connect together to tell a full tale. Sure, open world games often have different types of quests in which you complete things for different characters, but this all connected together in one massive grand fashion, and this is what is referred to in the storytelling world as pulp. It's not often that a game attempts this non-traditional plot structure, but after playing through Days Gone, I feel like more games should look into this, especially open world ones.